Okay. Sweet. All right. Looks like we are live.
Ye
Um, awesome.
very little
So,
issues. Ah,
yeah, no issues. Yeah. So awesome. We're live. Thank you, everyone who's here joining us today for the second reality streamer session. This time it is featuring the wonderful Alucard. Thank
yo,
you,
welcome everybody.
Benny. Um, Sweet. So let's get started. Today we're talking about securing your first paid sponsorship. As I mentioned, we are joined by the wonderful the Alucard 420. And today we'll be discussing how they secure paid sponsorships through streaming. Hopefully, with the hopes that you all who are here, streamers and aspiring streamers alike, can learn some tips and tricks in terms of how you can implement this into your own repertoire, and hopefully start to do some cool things yourself.
Yes,
So
yes, I
first,
hope so.
yes. So first, let's start off by talking a little bit about
Hmm,
you, Alu, and
oh,
diving into your journey a little bit. Maybe you can kind of briefly just introduce yourself and tell us how you started your streaming journey and how you got to where you are here now on reality.
yes. Hi everybody, my name is Genya, better known here on the platform as the Alucard. I did start streaming about, I wanna say 10 years ago. I streamed with a squad playing a bunch of different MOBAs. That is, you know, the life I come from, which was a lot of fun, but, as deals and sponsorship goes, they come to an end. And, life does go on, you know? Mhm, mhm.
Awesome. And when we talk about like streaming and the journey that you've been on so far, like what inspired you to originally start streaming and what keeps you motivated?
Um, Honestly, I just enjoy the idea of giving people something to laugh about because life is already stressful as it is, and having someone who's willing to be the goofy weirdo, make you laugh all the time, that's okay. I'll take it.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, spreading joy is great, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome. Sweet. Okay. Well, I'm really glad to have you here and happy you're joining us. And I really appreciate the time you're taking out of your busy schedule to help out and share some of the wonderful knowledge that you have. So thank you.
Yes, yes, I'm delighted to be here. I'm all nerves and nothing else, so yeah!
Don't worry, you're the streamer here. I'm the newbie figuring this all out.
You say
So
that
I'm gonna
now,
be
but after 10 years and I still have stage fright? Mhm, mhm.
well, there you go. I mean, for people who haven't started streaming yet or are still kind of like early on their journey, I guess that never goes away, right?
I mean, you find ways to handle it and essentially master it into your own tool, but yes, yeah, it doesn't really just magically one day bibbity bobbity go away, you know what I mean?
No, I totally hear you. I totally hear you. Well, sweet. Okay. Well, we can dive into sponsorships here then. So the first topic is really like understanding sponsorships and kind of talk about the basics of sponsorships. Maybe like in your own words, you can kind of explain what exactly is a paid sponsorship and how maybe it differs from other types of collaborations that you might see.
So a paid sponsorship is where you either get an item or utilize an item in the hopes of selling the item to your community. Mhm. That's how my
Awesome.
spade paid sponsorship went.
Yeah. And like why I mean, I guess a big question would be like why do companies sponsor streamers? Like what do they generally look for in these types of partnerships or what are they looking to get out of them?
Well, it depends on the style of content that the streamer is creating. For example, people who are doing vlogging and day-to-day usage of their mobile devices are more likely to be reached out to by a company who's going to make devices that help make that sort of lifestyle easier. Mhm. I know that
Awesome.
was
Okay.
very random, I'm sorry.
No, that totally makes sense. So people who kind of generally companies are looking to sponsor or partner with streamers who kind of are already in the realm of whatever their product or service is, essentially.
Oh, definitely, because most of the time they're not gonna make a brand new product for a streamer.
Yeah, yeah,
No
definitely. I
hate,
mean, you got to be
everybody,
huge for that.
but that's, it's very unlikely unless you're Markiplier.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, sweet. Okay, awesome. And then moving on, then thinking about preparing for these sponsorships, right? Because I'm sure a lot of streamers have seen these types of sponsored streams, people promoting different products, and of been interested in achieving that at some point in their streaming journey, right? That's kind of like a huge milestone once you get the opportunity to do your first sponsorship. How how do you think a streamer can know when they're ready to take on that step to seek out sponsorships?
Well, for each individual person, it's always going to be different, but I would say at any time when you feel like you're ready to take that next step, go for it. Because the worst that can happen is you get a no for now.
Yeah, totally. And
Yeah.
rejection is not always a horrible thing, right? Like it's something that you can
Yeah,
learn from.
exactly. Sometimes even in their like rejection letter, they will give you some tips into proposing back to them again. So there is that. Mhm.
Yeah, awesome. Okay. So it's better to so rather than trying to wait, I guess, me just this is me trying to interpret what you're saying or think of it a little bit more deeply about it. Rather than trying to
Gosh.
wait for the perfect moment or when you hit a certain size, um, to your experience, streamers should be a little bit more proactive in terms of trying to seek out these sponsorships and trying to figure out when they can get these types of partnerships available to them. Um, as soon as they potentially feel ready, right?
Yeah, because interest in deals and companies will raise a flag to other companies in that industry if one doesn't accept you. A counter offer from another company may be, something that might happen. It is quite common.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's actually an interesting point too, because um, sometimes when you take that step, even if you're not necessarily ready or a company isn't necessarily ready to partner with you right now, it puts you on their map, right? So they might start to
It
monitor
does.
you or and they know that you're interested in whatever that it is that they're, selling or whatever they're trying to promote. Which I think is generally important to these types of companies, right? They want to work with someone who's actually going to be excited about the product or service as opposed to
Yeah.
somebody who like doesn't really care.
Yeah, so they're definitely gonna be looking at what kind of mannerism you've approached the product itself at the end of the day. Mhm.
Yeah, totally. Okay. And like are there key metrics or achievements that maybe companies look for in a potential streamer that they might want to partner with?
One of the big things that they do look at is how active you are with your community. How big of a presence do you have in their lives? Because I hate to say it like this, but from a business standpoint, they have to look at how able are you to sell their product or how able are you to push their game or their content.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, yeah.
totally. Yeah. And I mean you mentioned it there, right? Like having an engaged audience or people who you actually have, you know, an audience that you built a relationship with goes a long way because I guess these companies probably feel like you're more um have a deeper connection with your audience, and in that sense, you have more of an ability to resonate with them, or actually
Mhm.
get them to care about this thing that the company is trying to promote, right?
Yeah. It's one of those things of how devoted are your fans and will they buy the item that you bought, you know?
Yeah,
It is
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
an ugly face to put up for it, but yes, when you look at your hopes for sponsorships and for deals and stuff like that, you wanna look at your target audience. Who are you streaming to? Who do you go and log on to every day? What do they dig about your content? What is your click? And that might be your most marketable pinpoint for finding
Yeah,
out what kind of sponsorships you wanna make.
yeah, and that kinda
Mhm.
actually leads me to the next question too, which I was gonna ask, which is how important is branding or, like, having a niche for attracting sponsors?
It can be very, very, very important because if you let's say you're again, I go back to the daily vlogger thing, but if you're a daily vlogger and then you land an Xbox sponsorship, who are you selling that to?
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah, yeah, totally.
so, yeah, and you may have the audience and the right algorithms to land a deal like that, but you have to think about who's gonna click on your video every day, and will that person in their home want to buy that item?
Totally.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah. Right, and you see that often, right? Like, you'll see travel vloggers, and they will be promoting, like, Expedia or, an airline or
Luggage
a hotel
brands.
line. Yeah, luggage,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly,
I mean,
and gamers are often promoting video games or video game, like, peripherals, right? Whether those are controllers, mice, keyboards,
oh,
headsets.
yeah, it's a whole arraignment of things. So, that's one of the big things to take into account when you do go out into the world and look for these companies that may want to partner with you.
Exactly, yeah, you wanna find something that actually aligns with the type of content that you're creating and the audience that you have as opposed to just, like, anything
This is
or
a
something that
big
maybe you find
company.
cool.
Yeah, instead of, "This is a big company, I should land this deal." Mhm, mhm.
Exactly, totally, okay. Sweet, that's awesome. Okay, and then moving on, kind of thinking about the next step, which is, like, approaching potential sponsors. I mean, sometimes, right, when you're at a certain size, um, you will have sponsors, potentially reaching out to you. But for those folks who are a little earlier in their stage of, streaming and are still starting out and still kind of getting things going, What are what are some of the best ways for them to potentially approach sponsors for the first time?
Um, One of the things that I have noticed for streamers, vloggers, gamers alike, using that company's material, showing their logos in your videos, showing their logos in your streams, talking about their product, showing your community and the company that you want to use it. You can also use those videos and those shorts and those references to get the company's attention on social media. Mhm.
Yeah, okay, that makes a lot of sense. So, essentially, if somebody is already kind of excited about a particular brand or a product, maybe they use, a certain type of, microphone, and they're really, like, excited about that microphone, they love using it, they talk about it all the time, um, it would be a good idea for them to potentially you know, create some clips or get some highlights of them speaking about those things and then reach out specifically to that company knowing that it's already kind of organic to their stream and the way that they're already living their life essentially.
Yeah. And sometimes like a shocking partnership is never unheard of, but especially when we are babies, we need to take baby steps. Don't go shocking the rest of the world right now. Put your feet on the ground first and then go shock the world.
Totally. And then like when streamers are thinking about actually making that outreach, right? So like I've done that. I have this, microphone company. I have my clips together. How would they go about actually crafting an effective pitch or proposal to a company?
Um, One of the things I've learned through piddling through some things is one of the really, really good ways to get a decent deal out of it is to show what both sides could gain from this transaction. What could you sell? What could you expose for that company? What kind of viewership and click-ons could you bring? Because at the end of the day, you have to boil it down to numbers. Be like, okay, I have consistently 200 people coming into my stream. If I pitch it to them, I know 100 will buy it. That's a good pitch. I mean, it's not the world's best, but you at least have 100 customers. Over a
Totally.
span of a certain amount of time, those numbers can start to look nice. And then giving them your plain numbers, be like, hey, I'm a streamer who does XYZ. These are my average, algorithmic stats. I would like to work with you. I currently have XYZ from your, arsenal of things. It's always a decent way to go for it. Mhm.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense. And I mean, I was going to ask you to maybe share an example, but I think you just put together a great kind of example there, of a kind of mock pitch, if you will. So really just like reaching out, in a way that A can communicate what you hope to get out of the deal, but also what the company can expect to get out of the deal. What you think you can achieve, right? And it's in the sense of you said, okay, I have 200 people that come to my stream. I think half of them will you know do the buy this thing. And then also sharing some of your obviously some of the kind of relevant metrics associated with your stream, maybe some viewership metrics or whatnot with them, as well as any personal affinities that you might have for the brand, right? Like, hey, I already use products X, Y, and Z. I love them personally, and that's one of the big reasons why I'd maybe be such a great spokesperson for your company.
Yeah, and be like, I've used your product for XYZ amount of time is also a great bit to put in there because it also shows that particular company or brand that your dedication to them is also of your highest uh, priority.
Totally. Sweet. Okay. Um, all right, then moving on, right? So I think like the next step is really right now you've reached out, you've made your pitch, and someone bites, a company bites. And the next step is really like negotiating or moving on to that negotiation aspect of the sponsorship deal, which I think is like one of the more dreaded aspects, right? Beyond the outreach. There's the initial outreach. A lot of people have a tough time like wanting to, trying to figure out how to champion themselves, talk amazing about themselves. Like people often don't like doing that. But once you do that and someone bites, like the next difficult, or what at least in my mind is more difficult aspect is the negotiation process, right? Um, what should streamers know about negotiating the terms of a sponsorship deal?
Well, when you bring your pitch forward, when you do get called in, if you do get called in, so on and so forth, um, you're gonna want to make sure that both sides has their portion of the agreement very obviously stated. Mhm. Um,
Totally, yeah, and that
one
okay,
of
yeah,
the
can you
really
take
big things
go
with
ahead.
kind of meddling with a deal or negotiating with these is make sure that your boundaries as a streamer and as a person don't get walked upon because the company or the brand is bigger. Mhm.
Yeah, and that's a good point, right? A lot of the times, I think when people are so excited and feel like, oh, I'm the lucky one in this situation to have been chosen, they sometimes forget that they actually do have a little bit of power in terms of negotiation.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, like how do you ensure that the terms are fair and beneficial for both parties, right? Because I think that's a great point that you make, and it does lead me to the next question. Um, how do people make sure they're not getting it, taken advantage of?
Um, well, see, that's the thing. With negotiations at some point, neither one of you are gonna be very happy, but it's just gonna be all right. When it comes to a deal like that, I guess my own personal advice would be to weigh your pros and your cons. Possibly speak with your community and see if that is something you as a collective would like to move forward with. Because if, yes, it's a big brand deal, but no, they're not willing to respect who you are as a streamer, would your community accept the kind of content they would have you produce? And would those,
Yeah,
200 people still come back in? Mhm.
yeah, totally. Um, and I guess like another, I guess the last question is like, what are some red flags that streamers should watch out for? And it kind of goes back to that same like getting taken advantage question. Like, are there any like specific clauses or asks that you've seen in the past in sponsorship contracts that are like immediate no nos or like red flags? I think a big one, right, is like not getting paid, right, or doing
Oh,
something
yeah.
pro bono. But are there like, I mean, I think that's an obvious one, right? Oh, do it for the
Mhm.
exposure or something like that. But are there any other like big red flags?
Um, a company will never reach out to you on an alt email or an alt account on any form of social media. Mhm.
Ah,
That's
yeah, that's a
that's
good one.
definitely a thing. I've noticed for whatever reason that's a trending scam I've seen. I'm like, "Oh, no." Yeah, I thought I'd say something about that, yeah, they're not gonna do that, and, oh, shoot, I think the other one for me would probably be make sure you can, see the full contract before you sign anything, and have someone else look at it, have a lawyer look at it, mhm.
Yeah, that's a really good point too, right? Like I think a lot of people don't have a lawyer on retainer, if you will, right? That's often like an expensive something expensive, but you can definitely like pay
Yeah,
lawyers a pretty nominal fee to just review something for you. It takes them like 30 minutes.
mhm.
They do it all the time.
Yeah,
And that's always important.
especially when it is for you as a performer, like your first brand deal, you wanna make sure this is solid and there are no leaky air holes in the contract where either party could get, the rough end of the stick. Mhm,
Absolutely, yeah. Totally. And yeah, I think I was also, I mean, I didn't say anything about it, but I think that was a great call out in terms of like be wary of like alt accounts, right? Or talking to people who aren't messaging you from an official account, aren't don't have an official email address at the company. Um, always be wary of those because yeah. I mean, sometimes there are agencies, I think. I've seen like agencies that work on behalf of big companies.
mhm, mhm,
But you want to do your due diligence and make sure you know who you're talking to because um, you know, in the world of the internet, there are always people
mhm.
who sometimes have like nefarious or bad intentions. So you gotta definitely be careful.
Most companies do sport the names of their owners, other brand deals and stuff on their website. Mhm, mhm. You can always double check there.
Yeah, totally. Sweet. Okay. And then moving on. So, right, you've gotten past you've done the outreach, you've landed a deal, you've negotiated it, you have the contract in place. Um, fulfillment and expectations. Like once you actually secure a sponsorship, how do you go about making sure that you meet the expectations of the sponsor?
Well, as far as it goes, if you say you're going to do it, give it your 100% because the impression you make with the company will carry over into the impressions you will make on companies you may work with in the future. Because even if it's a smaller company, they're going to talk to bigger companies. And if the bigger company goes, "Oh, hey, this person worked with you before," and you didn't complete any of your stuff, that's going to trickle on down the line. People will remember it. Mhm, mhm. So hold up your end of the bargain,
Yeah,
do your
absolutely.
half,
And
and
that
make
is
sure you
important,
stay.
right? Because I
Mhm,
think and you mentioned it earlier, right? Like creating for that first sponsorship, right? You create that kind of, you create different clips or you make your own kind of resume in terms of different ways that you have like talked about products in the past, or just products that you're passionate about or things that you like to kind of show a potential sponsor what you can do. But eventually, once you have a sponsorship or two under your belt, you're going to want to use those as the potential kind of resume or presentation that you're going to show other sponsors. So you want to make sure you're like putting your best foot forward when you're actually fulfilling on the sponsorship and doing the sponsored stream or sponsored post, whatever that is, because that is going to be what other people look at the end of the day, and what other
Oh,
people are paying
absolutely.
attention to. So,
Mhm.
and what are like when when you do have a sponsored stream, what are some of the best practices or some of the things that you've done in the past to like kind of seamlessly integrate the sponsorship into your content?
Um, Gradually bring it in. Like, if you already own some of the items, utilize them more, talk about it more, highlight some reasons why you like it. And then, later in this, if it's just going to be a one stream, I'm going to announce it in this stream. Start it off with you guys, check out what I got. And then midway through the stream, drop it. This stream is now sponsored by this, like that's the thing, which gives people time to, oh, you're using the item. Now we can get it through you and have the exact same item. They can see a live feed of what that is, so on and so forth. It gives you a decent amount of time to get an item out there and let your community know it's now a thing. Mhm.
Yeah, totally. That's awesome.
And I recommend live
Um,
streaming it.
yeah, for sure. Sweet. Okay. Awesome. Um, yeah, so moving on, I guess, to the next aspect, which is kind of building long-term relationships with, and sustaining these types of sponsorships. I think you've kind of alluded to it already and mentioned it in some cases in this conversation so far. But like, what are some ways that you can take a one-time sponsorship and kind of turn that into a long-term partnership?
Exceed the expectations. If you're a little streamer, prove what little does. Hmm. Little streamer, big audience. Bada boom. Yeah, yeah. You know what I mean? Reach out. Um do those big promotionals. Give yourself as much screaming room as you can if they post about it. Hmm. Hmm.
Totally. Yeah.
And if you manage to do everything and maybe a little more, it paints your current sponsorship in a great light. Hmm. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a second. Yep.
No, 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 totally, yeah. And I mean, I think that's a good point, right? Like, you really you always gotta wanna try your best, but I think when you have a sponsored stream, that really is, like, your moment to show not
Oh,
only that partner what you can do, but other potential partners who are maybe thinking about sponsoring you or are looking for someone to sponsor, um, to show them what you can do.
yeah.
I think like one like tip is like you can often find like other sponsored streams online, VODs of other people who have done a sponsored stream, maybe watch your favorite streamer and see a time that they did a sponsored stream and try to learn from how they carry themselves during that stream. Because you can always like learn from other people's experiences firsthand. That's one of the best parts of streaming is a lot of the things that we do are caught and live on the internet forever. But
This
that
is
gives
true.
but gives everyone here an opportunity to potentially go back and learn from what went well, what went wrong. If you see somebody has like a constant long term sponsorship, any of your favorite streamers, maybe try to go find the first time that they partnered with that product, see what they did, and see
Yeah.
how you can maybe implement some of those strategies.
Yeah, and another interesting but decent way to look at it is take a peek at the stock history. What happened when the brand deal was dropped? Hmm. What kind of influx did it have? Where the money's going? I hate to be that person, but yeah.
Yeah, no, totally. And I mean, this at the end of the day, these types of deals are business deals, right? Like at the
Hmm.
there's like dollars and cents, and there's a business on the other side of this partnership, and they have, a marketing team that you're usually is it's usually who you're working with, and they have to, they have expectations, metrics, and kind of goals that they want to hit. So, I mean, you do have to really look at it like that. It really is like a
Mhm.
job. It's like work. You're getting paid to do this. Um, so even though it is kind of like taboo sometimes to talk about like money or take things to like be too money focused, or you don't want to be a money hungry person, but you
Right.
do have to think about sometimes, revenue, what you can do for a brand, because that's what they're paying you for, right? So
Essentially, yeah. It's a little bit sad to boil it down to, yeah, they're paying me to promote their product, but yes, yeah.
yeah, yeah. I
Don't
mean,
make yourself free
it's sad, but
advertising.
also it's also a great great potential opportunity for you to make some extra pocket change. So
Oh, yes.
you know,
And a great
uh,
opportunity to meet more people in that niche and community. 'Cause sometimes when you're sponsored, it pulls in other people from the same sponsorship. Mhm.
exactly, yeah. And then, like, in general, like, what strategies have you used in the past to, like, maintain positive relationships with sponsors that you've worked with?
Um, for me, after the sponsorship has ended, I typically do continue to use that products, you know, mostly out of loyalty, but primarily because it was a decent product. Mhm.
Yeah, awesome. And, I mean, do you do any, like, follow-ups? Do you, like, message, like, send a,
Oh,
message once in
yeah,
a while to,
sometimes
like, your point of contact?
I'll blip out a little, if I can, I'll do a video post or a little social media shout out, shoot over a message, see if they have any openings. Never hurts to ask.
Yeah, awesome. Sweet, and then I guess, like, moving on to the next slide, and just kinda learning, right, and continuing to grow, like, what are just maybe some general lessons that you've learned from the experiences that you've had?
A company is always going to be interested in what kind of growth they can have with you as a content creator. Because at the end of the day, both of y'all are riding that whale together. And if the company tanks, you're going to tank with them. But if you skyrocket, they're going to skyrocket with you. And they will always
Yeah.
bet money on the one who has room for growth. Mhm.
Totally. Yeah, yeah. That makes sense. And, like, in
Yeah.
terms of, like, feedback, right, or criticism, because 'cause I'm sure, like, when you do a stream, a sponsorship or whatever, and they come back to you with some feedback or some criticism potentially on how they would've maybe things didn't go exactly how they were expecting, and they would've liked things to happen in a different way. How do you handle those types of conversations with sponsors?
This kind of rounds me back into your own personal boundaries. If the deal wants you to change everything about your content and everything about who you are as a streamer, no, it's not worth it. That's not worth selling your identity for. Sorry, it's not. But as long as it is, constructive criticism, something you can understand and be like, "Oh, yeah, that's definitely something we can work on together." But if they're like, "No, change everything about you," then no. They just want you for your exposure. Which, yes, can be decent, but also, will you be happy? And will your community be happy consuming content that neither one of you want? Mhm.
Totally, yeah. So, I mean, what I'm interpreting from that is, like, if they're giving you constructive feedback, and it's reasonable and fair, like, it's always, healthy to be able to accept
Mhm.
that, hear that, and kind
You
of
work with it.
work on it where you can. But you need to have boundaries in terms of what's being asked of you. And I think also just in general, in terms of like sponsorship asks as a whole,
Absolutely.
right? You do want to make sure you're not, you know, I guess the word like selling out is is a little hardcore, but you don't want to, you don't want to be doing anything that's being asked of you, or changing your entire identity, or promoting something you don't necessarily believe in or you think might be bad for your audience just because there's a paycheck attached to it, right?
Right. Because there might be a paycheck attached to that, but at the end of the day, your audience being there every day is your long term. And if you lose a vast majority of your day-to-day audience, then your long term becomes focused on that current sponsorship. And then when it ends, there is nothing else there, you know?
Yeah, totally. That makes sense. Sweet. Okay. And then I guess kind of moving on to to one of the last parts. Uh just in general, like do you have any like what's do you have a most valuable piece of advice you would give to new streamers looking to secure their first paid sponsorship? Like what's that golden kind of rule that you would give?
Uh, haha. Put on your brave face and dive into the ice cold water. Uh-huh.
Yeah, totally. So like
Give it a go.
just go for it,
Jump
right?
on
Like
in.
don't
The water's
yeah.
cold and it ain't getting warmer.
Yeah, totally, totally, and I think it's kind of goes back to what you had mentioned earlier in terms of, um, when does a streamer know when they're ready to seek a sponsorship, right? And you kind of said like you need to just go for it when you feel like the opportunity is there, right? You don't necessarily want to be waiting for the right time because sometimes you'll just be, you know,
Yeah, sometimes
paralysis
it
in
just
terms of like never
happens
feeling like you're
overnight.
there. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Like, boom, suddenly it's like, "Oh my gosh, what happened? I was something while I took a nap, wasn't it?" Mhm.
Totally awesome. Okay. Yeah, sweet. So I guess like then we can move on to this kind of last slide here. And future goals in general. Looking forward and being more specific. Like the last few most of the slides here have been really about just general, your experience, and different pieces of advice that you have. But in terms of you specifically, like what are your future goals in terms of sponsorship, and how do you plan to achieve them, or like what steps are you taking now to kind of get you to the place you want to be?
Um, I have a pending email with a company that makes controllers for mobile video gamers. Mhm, mhm. I got a response back on the first round, but now I'm waiting again. Do, do, do.
Oh,
I got
nice.
that one,
Okay.
and I
Good
recently
luck.
reached out to a, company that does, like, setups, so, like, mics and stands, lighting and stuff for streamers. Mhm, mhm.
Awesome. And do you like when you reach out, do you usually do that through social media, or do you do it through email? Like what's the medium that you usually find the most
I
success?
typically get a response back when you do reach out directly to their email. Mhm.
Email, yeah.
And of course, you
Totally.
guys that do send out the email, make your email address look very, professional, don't have it some wonky, goofy name, 'cause they will probably not respond to you. Mhm.
Yeah, totally. Sweet. Okay, awesome. And then just in general, like do you have any big like future plans streaming wise here on reality? Any cool things that you're putting
Oh,
together or any things you want to tell the audience about?
yeah, we have the music festival, the Summer Sound Music Festival next month during the, 16th through the 18th. Applications are still open. Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Awesome.
Yes, don't
Sweet.
forget.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, yeah.
Sweet.
Ta-da!
And I will put together a kind of article after this. Some of you may have seen the article from the last streamer session. And I'll make sure that I get some information from you, Alu, in terms of how people can actually sign up for that music festival. And I will make sure that there's some links included in the article itself so people can uh go sign up for that if they want.
Coolio Don Julio. Yeah, no worries. Mhm, mhm.
Sweet. Okay. Well. Once again, thank you so much for being here. I know you took time out of your busy schedule to come here and do
Of
this.
course. It's been a
Thanks to
pleasure. It's been
everybody.
real fun.
Yes, it's been great, and thank you to everyone who tuned in and is viewing. We will be making the announcement for next month's streamer session during the Patch Notes live stream towards the start of August. So yeah, hope to see you all there, and thank you so much for tuning in. Bye.
Wow.